Governor J.B. Pritzker says he took a cue from Republicans in wanting to eliminate the state's grocery tax permanently. Welcome back, Bishop on Air. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for hanging out each and every weekday morning. Yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker was in Morton, Illinois, talking about an award program for some food pantries and such, and he was asked off topic about the grocery tax. Now, for background, the grocery tax, it's 1% in Illinois. You had in fiscal year 2022, if you recall, the governor reduced that grocery tax to zero for a full 12 months in his budget that year. Then it kicked back in. He said it was because of inflation and whatnot. But in his budget proposal he shared last month, he said that he wants to eliminate the grocery tax for good. And then you saw the opposition stack up, and the opposition included the Illinois Municipal League that says they could be out local governments $325 million, and there's nothing in the governor's proposal, at least, that would backfill those lost dollars. So the Illinois Municipal League, mayors across the state, criticizing the governor's proposal. Last week, the governor was asked about this, and he said local communities can implement their own tax. He was asked about it again yesterday with some follow-up questions, and then he also shared, hey, it was a Republican idea. He's just taking their cue. Here is Governor J.B. Pritzker from yesterday in Morton.
They will have the ability to reinstate a grocery tax locally if that's what they want to do. But this is about local control. And also eliminating a regressive tax on everyone in Illinois, but especially those who are disadvantaged, those who are often left out and left behind. So, yeah, I think we need to cut taxes, especially for people who are just trying to go get food at a grocery store. It is time for us to eliminate it. I want to say one other thing. We're one of only 13 states left in the country that has a grocery tax. All the other states have gotten rid of it. And you ought to go look at the map and see which states are remaining. But, I mean, we're behind West Virginia at getting rid of a grocery tax, just to give you an example. We should be leading in this country. Illinois is a state where we care deeply about working families, about those who are low-income families, and frankly, those who don't have a job and may just have a little bit of money and go to the grocery store. And yeah, it's only $1 for every 100 that you spend, but that means a lot to people at the lowest end of the spectrum in terms of income. And so I'm, pleased and proud to have put this proposal forward, and always happy to talk to people about how we can help them locally to replace revenue. But the reality is I put $1.3 billion of state money, more than in past years, into local hands. And that's on top of billions of dollars that the state already sends to local governments.
But does this put local governments, local municipalities in a position of having to either give the appearance of raising a tax on their own or having to cut services?
So they're not willing to step forward and say that they want a grocery tax at the local level. They want the state government to do it, so they don't have to admit that that's what they want. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm saying that they're going to look like they're either raising a tax or they're cutting services because the state has taken away.
Go talk to the Republican state legislators who, when I eliminated for a year during the highest inflation time that we've had in my lifetime, or at least in a long time, when I eliminated the grocery tax for a year, the Republican legislators said, you should make that permanent. They yelled at me. They held press conferences telling me that I'd done something terrible by only eliminating it for a year. And I thought about it for a long time and thought, yeah, this is the most regressive tax, the tax on food. So we should eliminate it. I took their advice.
So Governor J.B. Pritzker saying local communities should raise the tax if they want, because local communities say if the statewide grocery tax, which goes back to local communities, if it gets eliminated, they're out across the state $325 million. And then he says, after more pushback, he says, it was a Republican idea anyway, so I just took their cue. Well, Republicans had the idea, and a bill that's filed in the current General Assembly from State Senator Don DeWitt, it would backfill the lost grocery tax revenue with money from the General Revenue Fund. And in particular, money that typically should go to local governments through the Local Government Distributive Fund. Now, quick background on this. Back decades ago, when Illinois implemented an income tax, an agreement was made with states and local governments that local governments would not be able to have their own income tax on top of a state income tax. Because imagine if, Chicago had the ability to tax your income on top of the state income tax on top of the federal income tax, right? I mean, just imagine that. So the agreement was that the state would give 10% of income tax receipts to local governments across the state. But they haven't done that. For decades, it's been stuck at like 6% or so, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on what. But Republicans, their idea is to eliminate the grocery tax, but backfill that lost revenue with the likes of the Local Government Distributive Fund. Governor J.B. Pritzker, as you heard there, he said he's willing to talk more about how to fill those dollars for local governments. But again, the governor's spending is at $52.7 billion proposed. He says there's a $300 million surplus in his proposed budget, so maybe that could be what it is. But then that would just be no surplus in the budget whatsoever, according to the governor. But he said, go talk to Republicans. I did. I talked with State Senator Jason Plummer from Edwardsville, a Republican, and he reacted to the governor, and in particular, pointing out that, the governor's talking about local control, which Plummer said is surprising.
Well, it's the first time I've ever heard Governor Pritzker in support of any sort of local control. He seems to try to control all the decisions from Springfield. I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a small piece of the budget. The bigger problem is the governor's spending. We're at $53 billion now. Spending continues to increase. And a lot of that money is based on things that are regressive taxes or one-time money. And those really trouble me, and I wish they'd trouble the governor and he'd quit playing politics with them.
And Plummer went on to talk about the governor's spending and all of the unfunded mandates that are on local communities and how that just stacks up and causes more frustration for local communities and also increases costs for taxpayers.
Well, the problem that the municipalities see is the longer Governor Pritzker's in office, the more unfunded mandates we push down onto our local communities. And their budgets just can't support the unfunded mandates from Springfield. They're looking for relief. If the governor wants to give them relief, we need to look at getting rid of a lot of the mandates we put on them, from law enforcement training to everything else, because the small communities in my district simply can't afford Springfield, Illinois.
So Jason Plummer, again, Republican from Edwardsville, reacting to the governor and his comments about the grocery tax. So wanted to get that out for you, but also just to kind of give you a bit of an idea of what could happen today at the state legislature. They've got several measures in a House Elementary and Secondary Education Committee that they're going to be taking up, possibly. That's at 8:30 this morning, by the way. Then they've got the Senate Higher Education Committee could be talking about giving community colleges the ability to do bachelor's programs. That's interesting. Senate Democrats have a news conference talking about their legislative priorities. You've got others looking at higher education. The Senate Labor Committee, they could meet as well to talk about a whole bunch of things impacting labor. You've got a news conference with Republicans who are going to be discussing policies that impact workers with developmental and intellectual disabilities. You've also got an interesting journalism preservation task force that met, and a proposed law, the Journalism Preservation Act, which we may hear a lot more about tomorrow, retouch on this tomorrow, but they've got a 1:30 hearing this afternoon, which the way the bill reads, it essentially says that digital publications for news can report to state governments their view counts and then get a stipend or something like that. I think the language they use is in exchange for a remitted journalism usage fee payment. So interesting. Then you've got the Senate Revenue Committee meeting and a special committee on criminal law and public safety. So a lot of committee hearings, a lot of news conferences. We'll do what we can to boil it down for you, what happened tomorrow. But also yesterday, you had former Governor Pat Quinn. He addressed the media with State Representative Ryan Spain to push for more ethics changes. And in particular, they want a constitutional amendment to say that you can have a citizen-led initiative to change state law. So a Democrat former governor, a Republican state representative. What kinds of things are we going to see from Democrats at the state house when it comes to ethics reforms? That'll be an interesting question to see play out. But you also have other headlines like the state Senate approving the Chicago school board's maps. You've got the Illinois State Board of Education asking for more money, and diversity recruiters with the state schools asking for continued funding as well. So that all happened yesterday. Again, if you follow me on social media, in particular X, search Bishop on Air, and you can stay updated with all of these stories and more. Appreciate you guys being with me each and every weekday morning here with Bishop on Air. Of course, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned for more, always with Bishop on Air.